Well, welcome to the 700 Club. You know, you read things and you say, is there anything more they're going to do to me? They're just like everybody's after you. Well, they're trying to poison the water. Can you believe this? A hacker infiltrated the computer system of a water treatment facility in Florida and then increased the level of lye in the water to dangerous proportions. Killed a lot of people that way. But fortunately, the plot was foiled, but it raises the alarm. Who did it? Where will the hackers strike next? Our Eric Phillips has more on the latest attack in the ongoing cyber war.
U.S. lawmakers want to make sure Americans win this cyber war. It's why they called a group of experts to Capitol Hill Wednesday to try and figure out the best strategies to implement next. In the days following the breach of the water system in Oldsmar, Florida, investigators say they have leads but no suspects.
We don't know right now whether the breach originated from within the United States or outside the country. We also do not know why the Oldsmar system was targeted.
There is no technology magic bullet.
In the wake of this latest breach, lawmakers questioned cybersecurity experts about how to plot the next moves in this cyber war. One expert suggested the battleground is enormous.
People have thought about the power grid or the financial system, but it's almost any system that is connected to the internet, which is essentially almost anything today, can be a target. And so we need to be thinking very broadly in terms of our cyber defenses.
We need to go on offense. We need to make it harder for the adversaries to conduct these operations.
The panel also provided Congress a to-do list. First, get a leader, such as empowering the head of a government agency. This person would then oversee cybersecurity in the civilian world.
We need a comprehensive federal civilian agency cybersecurity strategy.
Also, experts say the relationship between the public and private sectors in this arena needs to be seamless.
We need to move beyond just sharing information back and forth between the government and the private sector, but actually enable multiple elements of the government, law enforcement, intelligence, CISA, diplomatic, economic, to be lined up and synchronized in time with actions that the private sector can take.
Last year, hackers breached information technology contractor SolarWinds, gaining access to government agencies, including the Treasury and Commerce departments.
It may cost literally billions of dollars to secure our cyberspace.
President Biden followed up by earmarking $10 billion in his COVID-19 relief plan for cybersecurity.
We do not have a cyber problem. We have a China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea problem.
And while they're all dangerous, retired Colonel John Mills tells me China is chief.
We can't have untrusted Chinese componentry in these environments. And the reality is we're not good at that and not good at identifying.
Sadly, though, this war must be waged inside our borders as well, where experts say disinformation has become a main cyber threat.
I think that our domestic extremists and terrorists got a pretty good look at the playbook. Number one is disinformation is incredibly powerful. The ability to overwhelm airwaves with any sort of messaging.
The cybersecurity experts say it's absolutely necessary for the U.S. to strike back when attacked. But they say leaders must strongly consider case by case how that retaliation should take place. In other words, should it happen along cyber routes or should it happen in another form? Pat.
Oh, thanks, Eric. You know, we did a program about the power grid, of how easy it would be to knock out our power grid. And the cost was so minimal considered in light of the damage could be done. And Eric, have these experts come up with any kind of a figure of how much it would cost to protect against these kinds of cyber attacks?
Only a general figure, Pat, saying that it would cost in the billions of dollars. But to your point that you're talking about right now, when you're talking about protecting the power grid from something like an EMP attack, they have said in the past that that would cost in the tens of billions of dollars. Now, when you consider that's just one utility, you have to know that to protect the entire country from cyber attacks of all forms would cost exponentially more than that. But bear in mind, the experts insist that the cost of not preparing for such attacks would be even more.
Well, it'd be catastrophic. We're talking about trillions of dollars if they shut down all the grid, the banking system, the payment system in America. It would be, if you couldn't get any money, your bank wouldn't work. I mean, that would be terrible. Well, what's the most important thing we can do first?
Well, you know, Pat, when you talk about what the next step should be, bear in mind that these steps should be taken at the personal level, right, as well as at the corporate level, as well as in our federal agencies. So you want to look at dormant accounts, things like dormant software, dormant networks. Anything that's dormant is providing what's known as a threat vector or an access point where a hacker could potentially cause problems. So you want to make sure that you're checking all of those dormant points and all of those threat vectors. Also, watch out for spear phishing. The most common form of spear phishing comes in the form of emails that are sent to you from places that you don't know, from sources that you perhaps don't trust. You click on that and you open a door for a hacker to potentially do damage. So that's another way that you want to close off, seal off that door. And then in both the corporate and the federal public sectors, as well as in your private home, there needs to be some accountability, Pat. In other words, someone needs to have the responsibility of making sure that these things are done, making sure that these dormant accounts are closed off, making sure that as many threat vectors are sealed off as possible, because only when someone is held accountable, experts say, do you really see action that's going to protect the U.S. the way we need to be protected.
Well, Eric, thanks for this excellent report. Folks, I want to also share a little something about Regent University. Now, a few years ago, we were able to buy what's called a cyber range. We're the only university, I believe, in the United States that had such a complicated range. And we've been training people from the FBI, the Navy, Cyber Command, and others in how to do this. We also now have an attack feature where not only would we ward off an attack, but we could attack somebody else with that. And we have right now students at Regent University. We have about 500, I believe, in the courses because cyber security is so important. And we're giving not only degrees, but certificates in cyber excellence because it's crucial. Folks, I mean, you know, they've showed these cities where they took control of the banking facility and held these cities captive. They couldn't process their taxes until they paid ransom to these thieves that had taken their data on the cyber range. So this type of warfare is something we're not familiar with. We talked a long time ago about the grid, how easy it would be to shut the grid down, and think what it would be if you couldn't get electricity. But think what it would be if you can't get your bank account, if you can't get any money, and they can't process stock transactions and so forth and so on. The next thing you know, your entire economy goes down. So it's something that's got to be done. I mean, when we look at a multi-trillion-dollar economy, then the spending 10, 15, 20, 50, $100 billion is nothing considering the danger, and we ought to do everything we can.